Hello and welcome to another episode about the construction of the extension of Heaton Lodge Junction. My name's Simon George. You probably tell I've actually not been here since for the last 2 weeks since we did a last video. It's a horrible day here at Heaton Lodge, but there we go. That's Yorkshire for you. Now this video is going to be a little bit shorter because I'm going to be covering in particular stone walls and fences, which make up a really large part of the first phase of Heaton Lodge Junction itself. Just a word in general about scenery, because there's so many videos, as we all know, on YouTube about how to make this, how to make that. There's books out there, hundreds of books, and believe me, I read a lot of them and watched a lot of videos. But I really wasn't satisfied with a lot of what I read and watched, so I spent at least 14 months before constructing the first part of Heaton Lodge actually experimenting with dozens of different materials and colours and shades and whatnot, and eventually in each different aspect of scenery hit upon what I thought was ultra realistic. So what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is in the next few weeks you guys are going to be benefiting from all that experience and all that experimentation. So hang in there with me, because I'm hoping that you'll be really pleased with the results. So without further ado, we're covering stone walls and fences today. We're going to go down to the basement and do that. We're also going to be looking at the extension to the power station that Tim Horn from Tim Horn Baseboards was covering in the last video. And we're going to look at Heljan's MK2 O Gauge coaches. But I should have said as well, whatever scenic techniques that I'm going to show you, they're applicable in all gauges. And it doesn't have to be O, it can be double O, it can be N, it can be whatever. So it's relevant to all of them. So let's go down to the basement and I'll see you down there. Okay, let's start with stone walls. Now, I searched high and low before I started Heaton Lodge Junction Phase 1 for some really realistic stone walls, and I just couldn't find any. I even looked at making the walls out of Das clay myself, but eventually, just by chance, I found these, and these are basically some of the most realistic stone walls I could find on the market. They're made by 10 Commandments, which is an online business, I think, up in Scotland. And they come in O gauge and they come in double O gauge. So as I've said earlier in this video, all the techniques I'm going to show you now regarding these stone walls are applicable in double O and O gauge. So again, they're made out of plaster. They take paint really well. And I'm just going to show you how to set them in your scenery. And as you can see, I've massacred a bit of Heaton Lodge Junction just to show you how these fit on the scenery, how to get them to stick well. But given a wash of black paint, which again is what I'm going to show you in a minute, they come up really, really well. So I'm just going to show you how to detail them and how to paint them. And as I say, 10 Commandments, stone walls available in O and double O, and that is my magic ingredient for the, I think, 55 meters of stone walls I've got on Heaton Lodge Junction. So before we actually start setting the walls into the scenery, let's just talk about very quickly the ingredients, because they're familiar if you've watched any more of my videos. Das clay, of course, always really, really versatile and just works really well at setting these walls into undulating scenery. Bit of PVA glue, again, the cheaper the better. I'm using a bit of tremendous earth powder just to cover the glue when it sets, but you can use crushed up earth from the garden, you can use this stuff, doesn't really matter. I'm also going to use a bit of this postiche, which we covered in the static grass class, simply because it's really good draped over the top of these walls, and well, I'll show you in a minute, but it makes walls look just like they've got nettles or weeds on the top. Now this is optional, and I use it a lot because, quite simply, it is AK Interactive moss deposits. You probably know in the winter, the autumn, you get a lot of moss on stone walls. You don't get it in the summer though, so if you model a layout which is in the summer, I'd probably leave it out. But for me, winter moss deposits are kind of a must. Our old friend, the Rust-Oleum Clear Matte Varnish, spray, of course. You need a can of whatever it is, satin varnish, but it must be matte. We've got Woodland Scenics Blended Turf, again, which is earth blend. And this is always really versatile. It really gives some really nice shades. And we just need a wash of, this is a wash of just black paint, which is mixed 1 part paint to about, it must be at least 100 parts water. So it's very, very dilute wash. And you can make a wash yourself, as I just said, or you can buy it off the shelf. I think Humble do a nice black wash or whatever, but it's cheaper just to use acrylic paint. It's not enamel, it's acrylic paint, so it's water based, and you just need to make it the consistency of water. So before we actually get about painting the walls with the wash that I just mentioned, I'm going to actually set them into the scenery, and for that it is dead easy. I just use, again, this brush is way too small, some PVA glue, on which we're going to put some Das clay, because that enables us to position the wall. You can see I've completely massacred this part of the layout, but it don't matter because I'm going to be redoing a bit of this scenery. Still looks good, but doesn't do any harm just to put another layer on top. And now we're just going to use some Das clay, which I've just got from the packet, and just squeeze it into the PVA that you've just seen me applying. This, once it's dry, makes a wall extremely stable, because you don't want to be breaking these walls. Incidentally, the stone walls are interesting because, again, 10 Commandments do them in double O, they do them in O, but they don't, I think they do curved walls as well, but you rarely see stone walls that have got anything other than a very, very sweeping curve on them. So we'll come to curves and how to curve walls in a minute, but what I normally do, if I've got any curves, I usually use fences, because walls and fences, as you'll see shortly, go very well together. Next thing, I'm going to put a bit of PVA glue on the bottom of this wall, like so. You won't believe how tedious this became. I think it was during COVID I did a lot of the stone walls, and 55 meters was just unbelievable, but there was not much else to do during COVID. Well, most of the so I did get the job done. And this, of course, as you can see now, fits really nicely and securely, I'll say that, into that Das clay, which once dry, it will be extremely secure. You can already see I've got some fencing, which I'll talk about in a minute, but the stone wall, it's in there now. We're going to pretend that it's dried. I'm going to take it steady because I don't want to knock it over. But yeah, we're going to start by giving it an overall wash. So the wash I'm using is simply, well, we went through it in the ingredients, didn't we? It's simply black acrylic paint, which is just really, really watered down. Now, you probably won't see yet, but black acrylic paint watered down actually appears grey on these plaster stone walls, and they really, really accentuate and pick out the individual stones. I really love these walls. I remember when I bought them, when I ordered a pack, I think it was 3 cardboard boxes full, and the poor chap at 10 Commandments, I think he must have been making them for about 2 weeks, bless him. So if he's watching now, thanks very much, because they really do stand out, and they get loads of really, really positive comments. You can already see now that this, and I've not even added anything else apart from this wash, but they really, really look good. Okay, so that's job number 1. Right, I've adjusted the camera a bit because I just want to show you a bit of a close-up of this our stone wall. Now we're going to use postiche, again doll's hair. You're probably familiar with it rather from the video I did on static grass. But to secure it, as you can hear, I'm just going to spray some varnish on top of that wall. It's matte, so it does a good job of securing this postiche, famous last words, onto the top of the wall. You don't need it over every single section of stone wall, but I usually put it every kind of 3 sections or so. And you can see if I spray a bit more, it'll go white. I picked up this technique actually from Alan Downs years ago, who again, I've mentioned him quite a lot in these videos. Really prolific modeller in the 70s and 80s. He was always in model railway constructor for those of you that remember. But he, again, without boring you to death, used to work really fast and passed on a lot of his techniques on to me. So I'm going to sprinkle on some earth blend, which again is Woodland Scenics, and sprinkle that onto the postiche, like so. And again, this is, I suppose this is really for a autumn kind of layout. It doesn't really matter, but whatever. You don't often find stone walls with nothing on top of them. They usually got some sort of weeds on top, unless of course it's in the height of summer, which you rarely see that for some reason. Not sure what the science is behind it, but there you go. I'll just add a bit more of that varnish. I use this varnish so much and it smells really, really nice, but I go home stinking of it at night. Right, so that is stage 2. Bit of postiche and yeah, the earth blend by Woodland Scenics sprinkled on top. Now I'm going to cover our DAS clay at the bottom and that PVA glue with a bit of the tremendous earth powder. It just comes in so useful, this stuff. In fact, sometimes you have to chuck it on to get to the right bits. But we're going to cover a lot of this earth powder with maybe a little bit of static grass, because as you know, you get a fair few weeds growing at the bottom of walls. Chuck it in there. Again, I've said it before, but you can use earth from your garden. You've just got to make sure it's really, really scrunched up, dry and really, really fine. Okay. We're also going to just put a little bit of this. This is AK Interactive. I nearly said AK-47 there, but that's a rifle. So AK Interactive, moss deposits, and we're just going to do a little bit. It's almost a dry brush, to be honest. This will tone down later, so it might look a bit bright now. But there again, some moss really is bright. And again, you wouldn't get moss growing in the height of summer. So if you've got a summer layout, don't really put this on. Leave it out. But you only need a little bit like so. And we're not far off now. I'm just going to give a bit of spray varnish just to soak that earth powder and secure it. And to be honest, I don't really see how much better it gets than that. Let's just have a better look at it, a close-up. Okay, so let's have a better look at our newly finished stone wall. So just to recap, we've secured it with Das clay and PVA glue. It's on existing scenery, so again, you can put these on your layout even if you've already scenicked it. We're using postiche for either nettles, these are actually just weeds. We've used AK Interactive moss deposits just to put a little bit of, as you can see, a little bit of different shades on the wall. But to me, apart from maybe adding a bit of static grass at the bottom of the wall, which you can do, this looks pretty good. Really pleased with that. Hope you agree. Okay, let's move on to fencing. Now, as I said with the stone walls, when I began Heaton Lodge 9 or 10 years ago, I needed a really realistic fence. And I looked at, well, Pico's the best-selling one. I liked it. It went up and down because it's flexible, gradients that is. But what I didn't like was the triangular planks on the fence, which I don't think you see that often. You may do down in Cornwall, but you certainly don't up here. But it's a great fence, but actually not for a northern-based layout such as this one. So I came across, in the end, Slater's, and they do a line-side fencing, which comes in O gauge, it comes in double O, and I think it comes in N gauge, I'm not sure. Definitely comes in double O, and it comes in O. It has got its faults. It's, for example, I've just taken this one off a fret. It's got a few flash markings on it, but once it's vandalised, a bit like I was just doing a minute ago, which is just using a pair of pliers once you get it off the fret to get a few planks out, such as this. Because you often find that fences are very rarely, unless they're new, of course, they often look a bit dilapidated. So first thing we want to do is get the Slater's plastic card fence in double O or O gauge, of course, get it off the fret and just take a few planks out. I've probably got a bit overboard with that, but if you stick to a couple per fret, you're not going to go far wrong. Now, I should have probably mentioned the ingredients we need to make a really realistic fence. So let's go through that first. We need some primer. I usually use Halford's grey primer. I've just realised I've run out, so I'm just going to use some black spray primer because obviously the plastic fence here is not going to take paint straight from the fret. The two shades of paint I use, which give a really good, in my opinion, realistic shade of fairly new fencing, but not too old, is by Life Colour, and I use the leather cold light shade 1, and I put a bit on top of the wood warm light shade on top of it. We use the moss deposits by AK to detail it, and in fact, I've just had a nightmare because I've just tipped a whole load of this stuff over the track here. So yeah, I'm not in the best of moods now, but there we go. I will deal with it later. We also need the Das clay, and we need a bit of earth powder as well, or once again, crushed earth from your garden. Some PVA glue, which we used before with the stone walls, and if you've got some, and it's not essential, some of this doll's hair or postiche, which again is made by Tremendous or sold by Tremendous, or it's sold by Green Scene or any of the other manufacturers. So this is really good for simulating weeds on top of a fence. Let's move on to priming it. So this is one I've just sprayed with Halford's black primer. As I said, I've run out the grey, which is what I normally use, but it doesn't really make much difference. And then I have just painted it with the first shade, which is this, which is the Life Colour Leather Cold Shade number 1. Oops, and giving it a coat of that. Again, you don't have to, I've just painted it on loosely, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then on top of that, this one has got the Life Colour Leather again, but it's also got, when it was wet, I just went over it with a little bit of Wood Warm Light shade from Life Colour, just to mix a bit of shade, 2 or 3 different shades into it. So that's really the finished painted fence before we start detailing it, which is what we're going to do next. I say detailing it next, but of course we need to put it down into the into the scenery first. And again, all I've done here is just put a bit of Das clay on top of some cheapo PVA, and I'm just going to press the fence posts into this Das clay, which will dry, as you can guess, pretty much rock hard. Okay, so I'm going to put this fence in here like so, pressing it up to the stone wall, and then we're just going to give it a bit of a spray varnish. I'm going to sprinkle a bit of our earth powder. Again, we could do, and it's an option really, you can just add a bit of grass over the top of this earth that I'm doing. I'm just going to do a bit of earth at the bottom on this occasion. Just trying to cover up that Das clay, which is white and not the easiest to do, and I've also got it all over the fence, but no matter, it doesn't matter at all. Okay, so let's just have a better look at that fence. So just have a zoom in. And now we're just going to drape a bit of postiche over it. So again, I think that varnish is still pretty wet. Yeah, it is. We're just going to spray, just cover the top with a bit of postiche, and then we're going to sprinkle a bit of the Woodland Scenics Earth blend on top. I'll get the camera in for a better angle in a minute if you can't really see this very well. But again, fences, you do see them with nothing on them, but especially in winter you'll see them, and autumn you'll see them covered in weeds and nettles and everything else. Okay, let's take a better look at this. Right, let's run our eye over our stone wall and fence combination. Now that is completely out the box bit of Ten Commandments plaster stone wall. We've got our fence next to it, which we've just detailed, and again, just to reiterate, it's got a bit of postiche, the doll's hair over the top, and some sprinkled earth blend by Woodland Scenics on top of that, all secured by spray varnish. Bit of tremendous earth powder at the bottom. Again, we could put some more static grass over the bottom because you often find that fences have got really long grass. We're not going to do that today, but it'll just drag the video out, but you can do that. Moving on to the wall, we've got a really good rendition of a stone wall, which of course they're common all over the UK, especially in the north, but this one looks really, really good now. Postiche over the top, the doll's hair. It's got watered down or a wash of black paint, sprinkled on earth blend by Woodland Scenics onto the postiche, and a bit of AK Interactive green moss deposits too. So once that's all dried, believe me, that will look absolutely stunning. And it's something you can add to your existing layout really, really easily, as I've shown you on this, because I'd already done the scenery on Heaton Lodge and I've just added this to it now. So I hope that's been of some help. One last thing, just remember, when you're putting stone walls in, just make sure you put a few fences between them as well. It really makes a difference instead of one very long stone wall. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Right, we're going to be covering these Mark II Heljan O Gauge coaches much more intensively in the next video in a couple of weeks' time. But I just wanted to show you straight out the box what they look like, because really they're probably one of the nicest items of rolling stock I have ever seen. They're extremely well detailed. But for me, what I really like is these super new Buckeye couplings, which for me will stop trains breaking apart. Big problem on Heaton Lodge. But they'll also keep the coaches a scale distance apart as well, which is a massive bonus. So yeah, this is just one of the versions linked to me by Ben Jones of Heljan. So thanks very much, Ben. In a couple of weeks' time, we're going to look at the other versions and right up close and personal. So watch this space. Quick update on the power station as well, which is coming along nicely. Again, I just thought I'd show you this Model U figure, O gauge of course, next to a Dapple HAA. And then if we pan out, you can see the new generator building, which goes in front of the shell of the power station building itself. And if I just walk away a bit and just show you, the scale is it's just brilliant. It'll be fantastic when it's done. A lot of painting, as I said in the last video, and if you think that's big at 1.2 meters, just wait till you see the cooling towers. Much more on those cooling towers in the next few weeks. So there we have it, a Dapple HAA. If you're wondering what that opening is on the side, it's actually for a conveyor belt which carries the unloaded coal from the modified Dapple HAAs into this building, which when it's all working should look pretty spectacular. So there we go, more on the power station in the next video. So that's it for another episode, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. But before I go, if you could like and subscribe to the channel, that would be a real help. Any comments as well are always appreciated and always answered. And also to those of you that donated to the crowdfunding, I will say again, thanks ever so much. The link's in the description. It always helps. It's a massive project this, but it'll be fantastic when it's done. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.